Another option is that the market exchange rate is below the lower band within which our exchange rate can fluctuate. In this case, then, the supply of dollars at, in our example, 4.75 pesos is greater than the demand of dollars. Um, so this means that the central bank will have to absorb this excess supply of dollars in the market, and so it will increase its reserves of dollars. Now, the Central Bank of Mexico can just keep the reserves, or it has two options of investment with these extra US dollars. It can either buy treasury bills of the United States and receive interest on these T bills, or it can sell dollars to the US in exchange for gold at that same price of 35 pounds per ounce. So every 35 bucks of excess reserves that the Central Bank of Mexico has, in exchange, the Central Bank of Mexico gets an ounce of gold. Why? So this is very important because we will see in a second that is exactly out of a situation like this that the Bretton Woods system collapsed. But before we see that, let's go back to our reasoning on when Mexico is taking a loan from the IMF. So, what happens when we have a financial liability, when we have a debt with an institution that is basically a bank of countries? Well, when we think about regular banks that lend money to firms, usually to make sure that the firm is going to repay back its liabilities, the bank has some active role in the management of the firm. One possibility is that the bank is going to place some of its people in the board of directors of the firm so that it can influence the management of the firm. For the IMF, it's not that different. So if I'm making you as an international bank a loan so that you can meet the demand for dollars that you have on the market because the supply is too scarce, then I want to make sure that in the future, a situation like this, in which um, there is an excess demand of dollars, happens again. How do I do this? I try to influence your policies, your domestic policies, in terms of inflation, in terms of public spending, and so on and so forth. This is quite unpopular because usually in representative democracy we delegate these decisions to elected officials. We don't like when people that have not received any vote from citizens have the right to decide over um, issues of the national economy. Okay, so this was a type of issues known as IMF conditionality, and it's quite debated. It's been quite debated, and it's still quite debated um, um, across, in particular, developing economies that ask for loans to the IMF and then that see very pressing presence in their institutions by members of the IMF trying to impose sometimes unpopular reforms.